Hello everybody, we are back in front of the green void. I mean, we're back at Disneyland. Yay, look at all these happy smiling faces around me. We are back, and today I'm going to be guiding you through a railroad ride through. The Disneyland Railroad, to be precise. The first attraction ever envisioned for Disneyland or any of the Disney parks anywhere. This, in case you didn't know, is my fourth ride-through video. I've made 3 other ones prior to this: Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Horizons. This one is going to be a bit more scenic, a bit more relaxing, so strap yourself in, light yourself a Magic Candle Company candle, they're not sponsoring this video, and let's watch the Grand Circle Tour of the Disneyland Railroad. So here, as you can see, we're waiting at the station on Main Street, USA, and the train approaches very slowly from the distance. Now, this railroad was one of the first attractions, not even imagined, but also built for Disneyland, because it's built atop, at least in the front here, the berm on the outside of the park, which is what Walt Disney wanted to put around Disneyland to sort of keep the outside world outside, if that makes sense. And here we have the train pulling up. I believe it looks like this train. I have no idea, actually. Okay, it's the Ward Kimball. Now, Ward Kimball, if you guys didn't know, was an early WED employee. He worked on Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and of course, because of all of his hard work, Walt named a train after him, which is a very high honor at Disneyland. This is also one of the better front-facing trains. If you've never been to Disneyland, I'm not sure if it's the same at Walt Disney World, but you can either get a side-facing train or a front-facing train. This is a side-facing train, I should say. So instead of having to crane your neck to look at all the dioramas and scenes around you, this one just sits you to the side so you can enjoy looking at the Grand Canyon or maybe some dinosaurs. We'll see coming up here.
Welcome aboard the Disneyland Railroad. We're embarking on a Grand Circle tour of the Magic Kingdom.
So, as we're heading out of Main Street, USA here, this is actually the shortest leg of the trip, from Main Street, USA to New Orleans Square. Now, the New Orleans Square station is my personal favorite because it's right by the Mint Julep Bar. You can take a look at the Haunted Mansion, and it's also, I believe, where they let off the steam for the train. So, if you hear any loud noises while you're waiting in line for the Haunted Mansion, that's usually the railroad. Hopefully it's the railroad. There's a little bit of Adventureland theming here as you go to New Orleans Square, because you technically do pass through Adventureland. See, but you don't really see any of Adventureland. It's more just palm fronds and palm trees, sort of tropical looking plants, bamboo, to make you feel like you're passing through a jungle, but you don't go through any attractions or any landmarks like you do with New Orleans Square, Toontown, and the other one, Tomorrowland, yes. I don't know why that took me so long to remember. So here, as we approach New Orleans Square, he says it's a good spot to get off if you want to go to Critter Country, if you want to go to Frontierland, or of course New Orleans Square. And now, it's also a really good spot to get off if you want to go to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because you can walk through under the Hungry Bear and get to Galaxy's Edge that way.
For those of you continuing on with us, we'll be resuming our trip in just a moment. This is New Orleans Square.
Here we go. We got some sweet Mardi Gras float decorations, currently not in use. It reminds me of the Sassagoula Float Works at Walt Disney World at the Port Orleans, I believe, French Quarter. I don't think it's at Riverside. It might be at Riverside. But at the Port Orleans Resort in Walt Disney World, they have a whole restaurant themed around being sort of a float warehouse. And here we go. We stop at New Orleans Square to the jazz music and the Haunted Mansion on our left, the Mint Julep Bar with all the beignets and wonderful treats straight ahead of us. And the train begins moving now here in a second. I was going to say something about New Orleans and trains, but I completely forgot it. But I do want to bring up that people really liked me talking to you guys in person in front of the green screen. I believe in the Pirates of the Caribbean video. I didn't do it for the Horizons video, and I saw lots of people saying, hey, I like seeing your face as we're riding along together because it really brings you into the moment. So I figured, why not just try the face cam again. We'll see what happens. I enjoy doing it. It's a bit of a fun setup, so you guys can see what I'm looking at right now. You'd be shocked. Okay, so we are continuing on through the New Orleans station, passing by, of course, the Haunted Mansion. You can see the long dead trees and the fast pass distribution here right in front of us before we pass under a bridge, which is actually, we are passing over right now the changing portrait hallway in the Haunted Mansion. We're actually going over that right now, and those rocks are the first parts of theming, are the first little bits of theming that we'll see going into Splash Mountain here, which is a very memorable scene from the Disney World and Disneyland Railroad. Here we are passing through Splash Mountain after they come down through the drop, so it's a really fun place to watch people talking about how soaked they got. And then now we are passing over Critter Country. I do think a retheme for Critter Country might be in the future, just extending New Orleans Square back and making it sort of a bayou-themed area. We'll see about that. I have no real insiders, but I think that would be a really cool retheming. I don't know what they did with Winnie the Pooh. Maybe just bring back the country bears? We'll see. So now we are passing through one of my favorite stretches of the Disneyland Railroad, and that is around the rivers of America. So we see here Mike Fink's cabin, we'll see a Native American village, we'll see a really angry beaver who's trying to end the lives of lots of tourists and locals alike, and we will also see the backside of the Black Spire Outpost, or the back of the facade of Black Spire Outpost for Galaxy's Edge, which they themed it in a way I think is really cool. You won't see it in this video because we're facing front, obviously, but they themed it to look sort of like the Black Hills of South Dakota. So it kind of fits in with the Rivers of America and the Native American encampment. So as we go, you see here, that is an old keelboat, I believe. Yes, okay, so we're coming up on Mike Fink's cabin, and there is an old keelboat, and Mike Fink being a reference to the Mike Fink keelboats, an old attraction that used to sail around the rivers of America at Disneyland. It doesn't anymore, but there are lots and lots of references to it, more than you would think. And now we are passing over the entrance to Galaxy's Edge and through Big Thunder Mountain, and you can see the scenery kind of beginning to reflect Big Thunder Mountain. It's the same kind of rockwork, orange-looking, kind of sand-carved rockwork, which I think is really cool. It kind of extends Frontierland out even wider as you're riding the railroad and as you're walking around. And now I believe we should be coming up on the Native American village and the shaman animatronic. This all is new, with the new recent railroad upgrade. All of this landscape is brand new. And I think it looks really, really good, especially because you can kind of tell the planting and the trees are all new, but they still kind of look and fit in with the Disneyland charm of it being kind of aged and old. And now we pass through the tunnel into Toontown. So we already passed by the Native American encampment. I guess I missed it. I was too busy talking about Mike Fink. While we were also going over that one of those bridges, we were going over a beaver who was actually chewing on the bridge, about to make it like kind of topple over. I will put a picture of it in the corner of the screen. You can see that beaver trying to cause bodily harm to all of us. He's cute though, so it's okay. We are now in front of the Fantasyland Theater, where they actually used to hold Videopolis. If you've seen Defunctland, he made a really good video on that, my good friend Kevin Perjurer. Really, really good video on Videopolis and the scandals that went along with it. So I would highly recommend checking that out if you haven't. Now it's the Fantasyland Theater. They have Mickey and the Magical Map there, and not much else. Sometimes some extra hours events going on, maybe like grad night, they'll have a show there or something. I'm not a grad though, so I wouldn't know. Now the Fantasyland, or the Toontown I should say, station, I think is really cool looking because it emulates the Main Street USA station almost, with the kind of the California train stop look, but with the exaggerated features of Toontown. It's not super hyper themed like the rest of Toontown, but it's just themed enough to make the transition from Frontierland into Toontown a lot smoother. And I think that's a really cool thing that Disney did with that stop. Now we are passing over the Toontown Bridge, and we will soon be going behind It's a Small World. So if you want to see some behind the scenes action, this is always a good spot to kind of look at some show buildings, some trucks, and of course the wonderful work that all the Imagineers do and the third shift workers on the topiaries and the painting. It's all really impressive to just look at close up, I think. Here we go, passing behind it, all this wonderful Mary Blair, Rolly Crump architecture. Taken directly from the 1964-1965 New York World's Fair, It's a Small World celebrated its anniversary, I think, 64, 65, yeah, 5 years ago. And now we are passing behind Small World. Like I said, a good place to see show buildings. As you can see here, we are going back through the parade route, actually, where they come out by It's a Small World. You can see some old Autopia cars, and here we can see the past meets the future, with the monorail going right above us. Maybe we will see it in this video. I know for sure when they pass by each other, it happens sometimes, not all the time, but when they pass by each other, the monorail will honk its horn and the train will blow its whistle, which I think is really fun and cool. And if you look in front of us also, we will see a remnant of a long-lost, sadly abandoned Disney attraction, the Tomorrowland People Mover.
If you're into soaring spaceships, doing battle with evil empires and emperors, Tomorrowland is definitely...
You can see lots of, it's mostly Autopia along the railroad line, but you can also see, if you see up there, the People Mover line. Sadly abandoned and left to rot away. Maybe someday to return. Hopefully someday to return. I know with all this COVID stuff going on, Disney's losing a lot of money, so we might not see any upgrades to the parks for a little while. They'll just do what they have planned now and then kind of stop for a while until they do get that money back, but hopefully maybe a retheming of Tomorrowland is in the future, because I think it really needs it, and I know a lot of people who need it as well, who think it needs it. I mean, I need it personally, so. We hear the Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow playing, my favorite song to be pulling into Tomorrowland, listening to this Disney Sherman Brothers classic. Carousel of Progress is unfortunately no longer at Disneyland. It's actually at Walt Disney World, but there still are remnants of it if you know where to look. All of Innoventions, now Star Wars Launch Bay, used to be the Carousel Theater, where the Carousel of Progress was, then America Sings, then it's kind of gone downhill ever since. Now is my favorite stretch of the leg. I mean, yeah, if you need to stand up and stretch, now is the time. But now is my favorite part of the Grand Circle tour around Disneyland. You get to see not one, but two dioramas. One that was put there as a kind of remnant of the 1964-65 New York World's Fair, and one that was put there just because I think Walt Disney thought it looked cool, so he figured it would be a good thing to put in there. So give me a second, we will be passing through the Tomorrowland station, which looks very dissimilar to every other station on the Grand Circle tour.
To those who have just come aboard, welcome.
This, I believe, is the longest leg, and the reason why the dioramas are put in this part of the journey is because it is the longest, and guests were sort of getting bored, just kind of going through tunnels. So instead, they put some cool dioramas for people to look at. And there's some things that you won't see anywhere else in any of the Disney parks, anywhere in the world, right in these tunnels. So here we go, classic music. And this is the first part, the Mesa Verde / Grand Canyon diorama. Recently upgraded. If you look at the back, you can see some light rays that they added, some weather effects, but for the most part, this remains widely unchanged from when Walt Disney introduced it. Really interesting to kind of see Imagineers not having to build an attraction per se, but just sort of a scene, you know? No, there's no moving figures in this one. There are effects now, obviously, with the lightning that just happened that scares guests every time. It's so fun to watch. But this is just sort of a static scene, and you have to tell the story with lighting and with music, and that's it. you have the setting, but there's no dialogue, and I think it really works really well. Something you don't get anywhere else. And now, sort of the Grand Canyon kind of brought up to the next level here, we have the Primeval World diorama.
But it wasn't always this way.
This one featuring moving animatronics, lighting, audio, everything. Everything that you come to expect from, say, a Disney attraction, like a dark ride, similar to Haunted Mansion Pirates of the Caribbean. Now, many pieces of this diorama are recycled from the Magic Skyway, I believe. Was it Ford's Magic Skyway? At the 1964 World's Fair. There's a scene where you start with dinosaurs and then eventually transition to early man, caveman, going through modern times up into the future. And most of the animatronics from the dinosaur scene were actually brought to Disneyland after the fair and put in the railroad. The most famous, of course, coming up here soon is the T-Rex fighting the Stegosaurus. The caveman, nobody really knows what happened to the caveman animatronics. They were poking at a mammoth, though, who was featured in the Jungle Cruise, I believe, at Disneyland. So here we have the two fighting titans. And my favorite effect in the red was actually the lava flowing down the river, if you saw that. I love how I think it's just texture on rollers, and it makes it look like there's lava pouring down the hill. I think it's really impressive. And now, as we come back to our own time, more or less around the turn of the century, we come back to Main Street, USA, and Disneyland proper, and our journey, unfortunately, comes to an end. The railroad is one of my favorite attractions at Disneyland because you can sort of relax. You can bring a snack on with you. They don't care if you're eating. And you can just sort of ride it around there. No one's going to kick you off. You can ride it around as long as you want and just relax in the middle of the day, in the morning, or even better, late at night when it's running. So, yeah, the amount of history behind this railroad, Walt's favorite ride at the park, the reason Disneyland today exists as we know it, is right there, and we just wrote it together. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I will see you guys in the next ride-through video. If you have any requests for rides that you want me to narrate or ride along with you guys, leave them in the comments down below. I really do love filming these things, and a very special thank you to my friend LMG Vids for filming this. He lets me use lots of his footage, so he's a real big help to the channel there until I can actually get into the park and film my own footage, which I can't do right now until it opens in a month, July 17th, the anniversary of Disneyland. So, everybody, again, for the second time, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.